The following are 4 short videos recorded by your professors during graduate discussions and student interactions. Each slide has a link to the video for private viewing. Part 1 of my example contains a practical working session in developing the rough camera animation to better express the intent of the student's shot. Part 2 has 2 clips of our reading discussion of chapters 3 and 4 of The Anime Machine by Thomas Lamar, 2009. Films discussed were Hayao Miyazaki's Castle in the Sky, 1986, and Katsuhiro Otomo's Akira, 1988.
I feel like there's too much activity on the camera.
The camera just moves too much.
Yeah, it's kind of doing back and forth and stuff like that. I think you could focus on his hand and the hand moving to the top of the frame and then pull out with the extension of the sword, you know?
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's flying around him too much, and it's the actual excitement is the movement itself, you know?
So just kind of have it like focused a little farther away to start with, because I have it very close. I have this, and then it swings all the way around. So I think that's part of it, is that this initial motion is very dramatic. And then I add in another camera twist to here. Because
I would take away that second one, because I would think about more of a point A to point B kind of thing, more diagonally than circling around. You know?
I might try and just take out some of the middle keyframes. So I've got the initial point and then I've got the ending point.
Yeah.
And see how it smoothly moves between those two.
Right, because the action, you want it to be super quick, right?
This one, yeah, I think it could probably be faster, especially once I get the sword, like, because the sword's gonna flick out, like, as he pulls the sword out, it's behind him and then very quickly flips to forward, so it takes up a lot more camera space. So that's what we were talking about. I had the Maya file open, so I figured I would just delete those extra keyframes.
It's getting better. Let's look at the like do a side two windows with one perspective, one one camera view, and let's watch the path in the camera in the perspective one.
Yeah. Nah, should both of them at the same time. Only place one.
What's that?
I forgot that Maya will only like do like real playback for one.
Right.
But you can see the
I think time-wise, I think you want to hold in the up close position longer and snap to the out position for the shorter period of time.
Yeah.
Because it does feel very evenly paced. I mean, you could do that with your curve if you wanted to.
Yeah,
I know you know these things.
Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe then let it kind of continue to here in the first part, and then have it more quickly reach this final position.
Can you? I'm gonna try to write a couple things in there for you. Like go back to first key. Okay, first key, I would maybe go screen left just a tad. Yeah, and let's go to the second key. I would go screen right, because you're following his hand down. That's not helping you. You know?
Yeah. So
and maybe
try and line the hands up so they stay on this bottom third.
Yeah, we wanna see the side of his body a little more still. And then let's go to third key.
Well, I have these keys that I'm thinking about getting rid of.
Uh-huh.
So maybe having it just go from here to its final pose, which is here, and ignoring this, like, because I have the camera do this like twist.
Yeah.
You see it in the side, in
It
like
feels
the
extreme.
perspective
Yeah.
view.
Yeah. I
So
would
I
probably
could
leave that third key and maybe eliminate the two in between.
leave
Like,
2, 3,
yeah.
and
And then
then
the next
get rid
one.
of this one.
Yeah. Because I guess that's a hold at the end, right?
Yeah. And go to here, or go to, I guess this is a very, not too different. I actually like this one a little bit more.
Yeah. I figured that was a hold.
Mm-hmm. So now, it hitches weird, but other than that,
Yeah, I mean, I think you fix it from here, but to me,
yeah,
time-wise,
it
it's
does
more dynamic, you know?
it does feel more dynamic because you don't get lost in the camera movement, and it just, I could even probably have it hit this point a lot faster.
Uh-huh.
So why are you from here?
And I would just come along the side of his body more because I'm just thinking about silhouette as well, you know?
Yeah.
Because it kind of, there's a sideways on the sword and the hand. Yeah.
So kind of probably like that a little bit, but more.
Yeah, let's think about the beginning too. Yeah.
You got to figure out that jump. That's weird.
I mean, it feels better already to me because
Mm-hmm.
before it became unclear what was going on. Like, why were we
Yeah.
circling around him like that so much, you know?
I read ahead a little bit, so I can't remember if it's in one of these chapters or not, but I actually, one other thing, it's a little bit unrelated, but I, it finally clicked to me that when he talks about the difference between cinematism and animatism, he's talking about cinematism and thinking it sounds like more in line of live action film, and then animatism is animated film, and that like that didn't quite click before because I thought he was just comparing animation with animation. So like, you know, animation exploring the depth of the ballistic camera, and then animation exploring, like, you know, the multiplane kind of like more two-dimensional space. And yeah, it kind of made sense when he split them up. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is, I think it's actually in chapter 6 instead of chapter 5 or 4, but
Well,
it
one of
just,
the things that I think about is like, yeah, it's animation that is choosing to negate part of its art form. That's what I think cinematism can be if it's purely about imitation of movement in the natural world.
yeah. Yeah, and I think about like things that distinguish the art of animation from just imitation of cinema, like cinema, is really important. And that, I think it was like that little sentence, I wish it was said at the beginning. I would have appreciated a lot of the stuff that he had to say later on.
Remember what I said at the beginning of like talking about these chapters? Like, do you feel like he pulled the fast one on you? Got
Yeah.
all upset about animatism and cinematism, and then wait a minute, he's not saying it's bad.
Yeah, yeah. And he does that in like paragraphs too. Like he'll introduce like a sentence at the beginning, and I guess he's saying it as like, this is a question, but it sounds like he's saying it as a statement. And then it comes out, I'm like, that statement's not right. And then he's like, this is why it's not right. I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah, so last page, right at the chapter 54, I wrote in the margin, value judgments earlier are reversed, because this is where he says, this is where harnessing a different potential for of the moving image, the animatism that comes of an open compositing of the multiplanar image promises a way of interacting with animated worlds when it gathers and focuses the viewer's attention.
Which
Page
page was that?
54.
Okay.
But this is why I think he is really saying that it's the choice to not be imitative of the physics of the real world is actually superior in his perspective, because he's, goes on to say, only thus will animation break out of its modern technological condition. And that's how I see CG animation. The potential is there. The potential to bring all the things that we've learned in 2D animation into 3D animation is there. People have to stop thinking that you learn how to work in Maya and that's the only way it's going to ever be. They forget that you can manipulate anything if you want to display the mental landscape.
Cheryl Briggs has a short segment of discussion of readings for the directing course. Books read in the course include Directing the Story by Francis Glebus, 2008, and Directing for Animation, Everything You Didn't Learn in Art School by Tony Bancroft, 2013.
Page 10, where he talks about the ideal qualities, being able to inspire, explain, organize projects, prioritize tasks, work with others and set understandable goals, assess workers and make the best of their individual skills, and listen, right? I also find, especially on smaller projects, like I'm sure you all know, I've never worked for Disney, never worked in any big, huge studio, but I've done a lot of freelance work and client-based work in smaller projects. So when I'm doing that, what I've come to understand about leadership is you want your team strengths to pull through, right? You want them to pick what they want to do because that's what they're going to be passionate about. And as a leader, you fill in the gaps, right? And I find that really works in any type of leadership position, the stuff, if it's a smaller team, that you have the ability to sit down. And I think it was on Bancroft's book where they talk about sitting down and assigning all of the animation sequences or a sequence out to the team at the same time, and they're all in the same room, so that they're talking about what's happening in that sequence and that everybody knows what's going on, everybody's on the same page, instead of just feeling like this dictator of you're doing this shot, that kind of thing. So he talks about, I'm back in Levy, he talks about, listening to your instincts and following your gut, and continuing to work on your own personal work, even though, it's hard to find the time to do that. And even if it's 10, 15 minutes a week, you're still making progress towards something that's your own personal work, right? Having that outlet creatively is really important.
I thought it was interesting the part where he talked about Saldana had taken like an extra hour without pay directing on like a risky little project, and kind of how it is kind of also a privilege to be able to do things like that, but anyone can continue to work on their own time on their own projects if it means not putting on extra time at work too. So it's like a balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely think like Levy's sort of dedication to continuing personal projects and like working outside of work is, I was just like, I was reading it and I'm like, I should be working right now. I shouldn't be reading.
Hopefully this has inspired you all. I know it's inspired me. I started, I have been working on a project over the last 10 years, but now I'm like really trying to get it finished. But, it's good to keep reading. It's good to expose yourself and be inspired.
Darlene Hadrika has included a portion of her lecture in History of Animation on the credits of Gerald McBoing-Boing, then some filmmakers from 1950.
The film and the opening credits, just how many very famous people worked on this, just in terms of the credits. Kind of like go back to this a little bit. The story, can you guys see this? The story is by Dr. Seuss, right? And then with story adaptation by Bill Scott. Bill Scott was the voice of Bullwinkle the Moose, and he was a major story guy at J. Ward Studios. Bill Hertz worked at UPA and was responsible for a number of films, including There's Unicorn in My Garden, in the Garden, and look, Bill Melendez, who is the guy who is responsible for Charlie Brown, was one of the animators. These are all people who were like kind of taken out of the whole Disney scene because of the strike. And Jules Engel was an animator who taught at CalArts for years in their experimental MFA program. So, I mean, just this right now, this one little card is all these extremely famous people. Did I tell you guys the story about Bill Melendez when I actually met him one time? Did I ever tell you that story?
No.
Okay. So they had, back when I was going to college at UCLA, they would have, ASIFA would have events, and they had one at his studio. And Bill Melendez is this guy with, you know, Hispanic man with a big handlebar mustache, you know, and he's responsible for all the Charlie Brown cartoons. In fact, he's the voice of Snoopy. And I don't know how we got on the subject, but he started talking about the strike with Disney and how really painful it was for, and how bitter it was that some people were, you know, kind of outed by Disney, saying that they, you know, I don't know if he was, I'm not sure if he was blacklisted, but I'm sure that he was one of the strikers, and that was why Disney let him go, you know, and he was very upset about that. Yeah, even in the 80s, he was still talking about it. So it's very, very interesting. Let me see. And Bill Scott, I think I mentioned before, during the war, so Bill Scott was the voice of Bullwinkle, and he was also the president of ASIFA for a number of years when I was out in California. And I got involved with ASIFA and was involved with putting together screenings for the organization. ASIFA is the organization that does the Annie Awards. But, you know, aside from the Annie Awards, they had screenings and all kinds of things. And I got involved with it. I got volunteered into doing a lot of work for ASIFA, put it that way. And so I got to know Bill Scott quite well. And he actually learned how to pronounce my last name, my maiden name, which not many people know how to pronounce correctly. And I thought that was kind of cool that he bothered to learn how to pronounce my last name. But he told the story one time about how during the war, during World War II, he was working at one of the studios as, you know, a story guy, as a voice artist, and that if you were, you know, you were an in-betweener, but you outranked the director who might have been a private, that you still had to be nice to the director because you knew the war was going to end eventually and you'd want to be able to get a job again. And so he told, that was a little story he told. And he was just, you know, that's how he got into animation, was through the military. He somehow got assigned, and then he was hanging around with all these animation people, and he ended up becoming a major story person for Bullwinkle and Rocky and Bullwinkle. Anyway.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Well, my maiden name is Shenver, and it looks like Chenevert. It's sort of like Colbert. It has an ERT at the end of it.
Okay.
And so he learned to say it correctly, pronounce my name correctly.
So,
I feel that, because when people like say my name properly, they say Jurgen, and they like do the little, or they write dots on my name. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Hey, great. It's nice.
Yeah, but he bothered to like learn how to say it correctly. And I thought that was pretty cool. It was unfortunate because I mean, he one time he got surgery, arthroscopic surgery in his knee, and he was showing me his scars and stuff. I mean, he was a very sweet man, wonderful, and really did a lot for ASIFA. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and got to meet him and know him for a brief period of time there when I was volunteering for ASIFA. So, yeah, but anyway, so that's Bill Scott. And we're going to talk a little bit about J. Ward Studios in a minute here. So, so Gerald McBoing, also, did you notice who wrote the story? And it's interesting that it doesn't say Theodore Geisel, it says Dr. Seuss. So this is a Dr. Seuss story. And Theodore Geisel was instrumental in writing a lot of the Private Snafu cartoons. And I mean, he was writing for animation even before he was writing storybooks for kids. So he has a background in animation from way back. Yeah. So then we have, you know, we launch into this period after the war is over where all, you know, Hanna-Barbera basically is winning the Academy Award every single year. And I noticed a couple people on their discussion topic went on and on about Tom and Jerry, and well, you know, hey, they were fantastic. What can you say about them? They really were fantastic, Tom and Jerry. And I truly loved them as a child as well. So Jerry's cousin was nominated once again in 1950 for the Academy Award. Trouble Indemnity was directed by Paul Burness. This is another film done by UPA, and Trouble Indemnity is making fun of the live action film Double Indemnity. Have you guys ever seen Double Indemnity? It's got Barbara Stanwyck and Fred McMurray, and it's if you ever saw the movie Body Double, it's a remake of Double Indemnity, and it's a kind of about the private investigator and the lady who's trying to, like, find out if her husband is cheating on her kind of story. It's a very, classic story. I don't want to give away the whole plot, but Trouble Indemnity is just a plot, a title that is making fun of that live action film. And, just like The Simpsons will make fun of whatever is going on in current popular culture, the animators from the 50s were also doing the same thing. Can you guys still see this? I just want to make sure you can still see. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right, so Trouble Indemnity is a Mr. Magoo cartoon. And I think we looked at a little bit of Ragtime Bear last time, didn't we? Which was the first Mr. Magoo cartoon. So Trouble Indemnity is another Mr. Magoo cartoon. And UPA was famous for Mr. Magoo. It was a character that they developed that there really was a series from UPA. So if we have more time, maybe we'll go back and look at that. Then, of course, we have Cinderella. So Disney starts making feature films again that are like a full-length film that's one story instead of little short films all chopped together like Make Mine Music and The Three Caballeros. Now they're making a film that's an entire story. And so they go back to Grimm fairy tales again and make Cinderella. And Cinderella, is a very appealing character, and she's got wonderful little mice friends, Jacques and Gus Gus. And so I have a trailer here for Cinderella. Is there anybody here who has not seen Cinderella? Anybody? Okay. I'll let you guys watch these in your own time. There's a lot of things. I want to get to things that you probably have never seen before, including Crusader Rabbit. So Crusader Rabbit was notice who it's directed by Alex Anderson and Jay Ward, and it's the very first show that Jay Ward created. And if you can imagine, all right, so about this time, television is coming to exist, right? In 1950. And what a lot of the TV stations are trying to do, they have to come up with content. So a lot of times what they would do is they would take old radio shows and they would just take the voices of the radio shows and then they would just animate them. Okay, because they already had the sound and the story, and the radio shows were really popular in the 40s. So that was one way they made shows. Well, but they had very little budget, and this Crusader Rabbit episode, I want you to see just how basic this is, because it's basically a story reel.
Dr. Sung's clip contains a portion of her talk with one of the production teams for this year's senior thesis films, Symphonic.
When you send the tracks to our direction, do you typically send it as one music track where everything is included, or you typically send it in pieces? Like if they're for the parts where they're playing on the lyre and it's maybe, if it's not directly embedded into the music file, like would that be something separate, or would you put it all into one music file?
So I would probably put it all into one music file, but in different sections and chunks. And then we'll add it and put it all together and mix it in the end, you know. But you know, like I can separate the tracks, you know, and that's what I would probably do. When I write them, I'll write them as separate tracks and then export them all as one thing so that you can hear like the lyre and things all together. But you know, it may be at some point that we'll just want to hear the lyre theme and maybe adjust that or something like that, and so then that'll be separate, you know.
Okay, no, that's perfect.
In the end, you kind of put it all together so you have a good idea. And it may be that we might start with just you know, the lyre and a little bit of orchestral stuff in the background or whatever, and then that gets filled out a little bit more or something like that, you know. Just don't know yet. So that's part of the orchestration of it, you know, and instrumentation of it. But you know, generally it's kind of putting it all together, and then, you know, but they are on separate tracks. So if you wanted to isolate anything, we can always do that.
Okay, no, that sounds perfect. I just wanted to check. I wasn't totally sure how that kind of back and forth goes. If you try to send me things separately and I put them together, if you send them to me put together, or like how that goes. But that works. That works.
Yeah,
That's totally fine.
yeah. I would probably try to send it to you so that you can just import it into your program, you know, pretty easily. And Matt Tracy can help us out too, you know. So I'll bring him on into this project as well.